Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the session today. We're going to talk about how to address the score drop that happens from mocks. I come to hear from a lot of students. I talk to like at least 5, 6 new students every single day, almost like more than 200 days in an entire year. So I keep seeing a lot of challenges that people face. And one of the key challenges which I hear from them facing is that they don't know why their scores drop so much from a mock test, and how do they ensure that they are able to replicate their mock performance in the actual test. So a lot of it also depends on how do you analyze mocks like a pro, like learning how to do the right mock analysis, understanding where you stand right now, how to use mocks to the fullest, because mocks are the real end game, right? Just before the end game, the last stage, right? You have to get that right, nail that right, and then only you know probably that you are ready for the GMAT. So today's session is going to be really interesting. I'm really happy to see about 24, 25 people live right now. So I hope all of you are able to hear me loud and clear. If all of you can hear me loud and clear, feel free to say a yes in the chat. But yes, I would like to start without any further ado. So yeah, guys, it will be great to hear from you. Any challenges you face while doing your mock analysis, or you face between a mock and a real test, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat here. I'm more than happy to take them up during the session. This will help me in understanding what kind of thoughts you have, what kind of questions you have, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Okay. And just one small important thing. Today, I'm going to focus my entire attention on what is the right strategy to do mocks. How do you do mocks? What, like, how do you go about like doing using the analyzing the mocks, and how do you reduce your drop from the mock to a real test? Basically, how do you replicate the same performance in the real test? So obviously, just a disclaimer, I'm assuming that if you are coming to this session, you're already good with the subject matter. Your score in the mock is already at a good level. But if your score is not a good level, at a good level right now in the mocks also, and you want to understand how to improve my score first, there's another webinar that I did, I think about a month or so back, on score improvement strategy. You should go and watch that webinar right after the session. Okay. You can always attend the session, feel free to, because obviously you learn a lot of things about mock analysis and replicating your performance on the actual date. So last 10 days, 14 days before the test, what should you be doing? You learn a lot around that. But if you are not up to the mark in terms of your score currently in the mocks as well, please watch this video. It is very insightful. It will give you amazing insights as to how you can improve your score in all the three areas: quant, verbal, and DI strategically. Okay, so let's get going, guys. Let's get into the main part of the session. So how do we analyze mocks? Okay, so I have Arthur's comment. Arthur says anxiety, panic in actual test, and brain freeze. Very, very common issue, Arthur. Honestly speaking, if I tell you one of the biggest issues that people face, if I talk about, let's say, 100 people, definitely more than 80% people face this issue that you're talking about. It's a very important thing. But then this, I'll cover this up. Don't worry. I don't want to break the flow of the session right now. But definitely, any other people, any other thoughts you have, any other problems you face, please let us know in the chat. We'll be more than happy to take them up. So let's get started, guys, without any further ado. So how have I structured this session? So uh, we'll talk about what mocks are not meant for, because a lot of people don't even understand what should they not be using the mocks for. Then what leads to the score drop? A lot of people don't know why the score is even dropping from the mock to the real test, right? Parth has pointed out a very important fact. Parth, good job. How to avoid test day anxiety? So there's a test day anxiety factor, but what are the other factors which could lead to a score drop? We'll talk about those as well, because knowing them is also very important. How to analyze mocks, then we'll talk about, and I will take certain case studies also. Some of the things will be very easy to you for you to understand. Certain things will require case studies, so we'll talk about case studies. We'll show you results of some mocks and help you understand that how do you look at these results and how do you analyze it further. Like, and I'm not gonna focus on the obvious things like, okay, the score in quant is low, the score in verbal is low, or within quant this section is lower than the other. Those are like obvious things you can also do. I'll talk about not so obvious things, more importantly, which are the real deal breakers for people, like overall. Okay, and then obviously, as always, I'll open my session to an open-ended Q&A. Okay, so let's get started. What mocks are not meant for? And trust me, guys, this is important to know, because I see more than 50% people who are taking mocks, they take mocks for this purpose. I would like to hear from you. What are the reasons you are taking mocks for? Like at present, what are your top 3 reasons for taking a mock? Let me hear from you guys. And please participate, guys. It's great. Even if your reason is not matching with mine, at least I'll get to know what is your thought process, right? And I can possibly correct it if I need to. And if it's great, it's right thought process, then it's great already, obviously, right? So the most common reasons where I see people take mocks is basically to identify weak areas. They try to do mocks for identification of weak areas. Now, you might think, Piyush, aren't mocks meant for that? Aren't mocks meant for analyzing my weak areas? No, honestly, no. Because I'll tell you why. When you have only 21 questions, let's say, for example, in a quant section of a mock, right? You cannot identify your weak areas through just those 21 questions, because in quant there are more than 28, 29 topics tested. GMAT can't give you all those 28, 29 topics in a mock. So if you want to identify your weak areas, it's better to take sectional tests. Take tests for word problems, take tests for algebra, take tests for number properties individually, where you do 20 questions from each area. You should not be taking mocks to identify your weak areas. That's a very, very wrong thing. You should not be taking mocks to identify weak areas. It's better to take sectionals because it is more focused. It gives you clarity into what your weak areas are. Like, okay, obviously, if you just want to say, okay, I'm getting 80 in quant, I'm weak in quant, that doesn't help you understand. What will help you is actionable insights. You need to know exactly within quant where are you weak so that you can improve on it. So it's important to do sectionals for that, not the mocks. Similarly, you should not take mocks before you complete a course. Like, for example, whichever course you are following. Like, course doesn't mean any course from a partner like GMATWhiz or anyone. The course could mean your own course that you have created for yourself, that okay, this is what I'm going to plan for my GMAT. At least before covering the entire basics, you should not take mocks. Why? Because I feel then you're wasting mocks, right? If you're just trying to see how much you have progressed, you can take sectional tests on those areas that you have covered. That is a better measurement of your progress. If you're taking a mock and it is covering areas that you have not even covered, okay, it will test you on those areas, you don't have control over there, then obviously you will perform poorly on that. And that will play on your mind. That will unnecessarily increase your anxiety, reduce your confidence, and you don't want that to happen. Similarly, to identify timing issues also, you should not be taking mocks. A lot of people think that, and when I say timing, see guys, I differentiate timing and pacing as two different things, okay? Timing is timing that you, like the time that you spend per question, like for each question, like CR question, my timing is 2.5 minutes. That's higher than of required timing. So that is what timing is. Pacing is how you're pacing through the test. Let's say, for example, you're not able to complete the last 7 questions or 8 questions in a particular section. That's what pacing is. Now, they are related to each other, but they're not the same thing. For timing, you should not take mocks, because timing you can easily identify through sectionals and work on it through sectionals. Now, then the question could arise in your mind, then Piyush, if mocks are not meant for this, then what is mock really meant for? So the key use cases to take a mock is to, first and foremost, one of the important reasons is to identify the best section order, right? So there are 3 sections in GMAT: quant, verbal, DI. And there are 6 possible orders in which you can take the test. Now, which of the 6 orders work best for you? Now, again, out of the all available orders, there are generally 2 or 3 popular ones which you should try and choose. Some of them are like obvious and should not be attempted, but you have to identify which one works best for you. Now, there are various theories behind it, which works best compared to the other, but I would say choose the order which actually works in your case. So I would say try 2 or 3 mocks, see which section order is more comfortable for you. I generally recommend that people who are weak in verbal should start with verbal, then take quant, then take a break, and then take DI. And this is not something which I generalize for everyone. I'm just saying that this is the good order to look at, because when you start the test, your focus is at 100%. And when if you do verbal at that point of time, you will be able to start strong in verbal. You'll do a good job in verbal because you're able to focus more. And then if you do quant, there is another benefit of it, that your mind is focused, so you're reading well. If you're reading well, you'll read the quant questions properly and you do well on it. And then take a break and then go for DI, so that you have the break in between. Now, if you do quant before you do verbal, there is a benefit of that as well. The benefit of it is people who are stronger in quant, they might feel more confident just because they start with their most strong area, right? So you start with that. It will make you feel more confident about your own capabilities, and then you move to verbal, and then you take a break, and then move to DI. But there is a small issue with this also, right? When you're taking this, the problem is if you're starting with quant and then right away if you're doing verbal, At the end of quant, your mind is very puzzled, because in quant you have to think on 2 3 different lines at the same time. In verbal you need more focus in reading. So if you think that order is good, but just because you're doing verbal right after quant, that is where your mind is not able to kind of set the right pace, you can even get the break before work, I would say. But yes, there is no one size fits all. At least at GMATWhiz, we don't believe in that. We say everyone is individual, is unique and different, and when we work with students, we see their strengths and weaknesses, and according to their strengths and weaknesses and their capabilities, we recommend a certain section order. But make sure that you identify the best section order for you. That is what a mock is meant for. The second, and I think topmost reason, and I'll actually go deeper into this. I have a proper slides for this. I'll cover this in very much depth. Fine tuning your pacing strategy. So, Parth, Arthur, a lot of people talk about test day anxiety, but why do you get anxious on the test day? One reason is obviously pressure of getting into the MBA program of your choice and other things. But there is another reason why people get like conscious on the day of the test, or a mock, like real mock also, is that they don't have the right pacing strategy, or in the previous mocks that they have done, they've faced issues with pacing, and that's why they're anxious as to whether their pacing will be correct or not. Now the problem is, when they're doing mocks right, their focus is not so much on the right pacing, their focus is more on the score. So they don't take mocks with that mindset. And as one of my students, I worked with a student named Pragati who improved her score from 535 to 695. A massive 160 point score jump happened in her case. She was one of the things that she said told was, even in her interview that we did, that when I was taking my mocks in the last leg before my 695, I started focusing on the pacing part of the mock rather than thinking about the result. Because before that, I was only focusing on how well can I score in a mock so that my actual score is good. But I took that mindset away and I focused more on the pacing, and that's what helped me eventually get to a 695 in the actual GMAT. And I'll go more deeper into the pacing strategies. There are a lot of things that we have to cover in that. And then the third reason why you should be taking a mock over a sectional is to get that focus, that maintain that stamina for 2.5 hour long test. It is very important that you're able to manage that focus for the entire period. So these are three main big reasons why you should be actually taking mocks. Now, why does score fluctuation happen? Now, there are broadly, I would say, 6 reasons. One reason is a lot of people, when they're taking mocks, especially the official mocks, they end up doing a lot of official questions knowingly or unknowingly on GMAT because all the official mock questions are also almost there on GMAT. So it's important that when you're doing questions in GMAT, at least there is a filter called GMAT Prep Focus. You should take out questions from this filter. You should not attempt questions from this filter, because this question will come in a mock test. So try to remove the bias itself. So be practical when you're taking a mock score. Let's say you're looking at a mock score as 675. Okay, if you saw 2 or 3 known questions in the test, then obviously that has increased your score by 20-30 points, maybe 40 points also, depending on where the question was. And it also depends on how much time you spend on actually doing the question, whether you knew the answers or not. So that is also something which you have to take into account. But known questions can actually increase your score unnaturally in a mock, and you might think your mock score is actually good. Then sometimes what people do is they take mocks by taking additional breaks. Like I remember speaking to a student. He came on a discussion with me and he said, Piyush, you know what, my mock score and my actual score were 100 points apart. And I was like, why did it happen according to you? He said, Piyush, I think it's test day anxiety. But then through our discussion, after like 5-10 minutes when we were discussing, he ended up revealing the fact that he used to pause the test when a question became too hard for him, and he used to solve it and then resume the test and start it. Now, some of you might think that who does that? But yes, there are people sometimes who take additional breaks. Might not be between inside a section, but after each section, let's say after quant, they take extra breaks, or verbal, they take extra breaks. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. All I'm saying is that if you're taking additional breaks, that's not probably reflective of your actual potential. Now, another reason why your score can fluctuate in the mock versus the actual test is inconsistent strategies. Like, for example, there is no proper strategy you follow to solve a critical reasoning question. Then it can obviously go south on the day of the test, because there's no consistency in your approach, or let's say permutation combination, or things like that. So you need to have a proper consistent process in place if you want your mock results to be same as your actual result to be same as your mock result. And it's not like inconsistent strategies only means that your strategy is inconsistent. It's also possible that your strategy is consistent, but on the day of the test, as Parth was saying, that because of the test anxiety, possibly you are not following the same strategy. You are changing a strategy on the day of the test. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself. Make sure that whatever strategy you have followed, whether it is right or wrong, you should not change your strategy on the day of the test. Don't change your strategy on the day of the test. That is very important. So, Dhruv, you have the test tomorrow. As Arthur rightly said, keep calm. You can do it. That's the thing you need to think about. Don't worry about anything right now. Like, should you be attending the session today? I don't know, like maybe not, because I don't want you to change anything at the last moment. That's not the right thing to do. Like if you had 5, 6 days, 7 days, maybe yeah, make changes. That still helps. But last day before the test, definitely not. And that's what this point is all about. I don't want you to change your strategies at all on the test day. Whatever strategy you follow, stick to them on the test day. Make sure you execute it exactly like that. Another reason could be unreliable mocks. A lot of mocks, again, I'm not going to name which ones are unreliable or not right now. I don't want to get into that controversy, but the idea is some mocks may not be as reliable as others. The most reliable mocks right now, I would say official mocks. They're very, very reliable, obviously, because of obvious reasons. They have the same algorithm. But yes, even in them, they have experimental questions in the mocks. They don't have experimental questions in the mocks, sorry, and they have experimental questions in the actual test. So the scoring differs a little. Like, for example, I recommend a DI scoring strategy, which will not work in official mocks, because in official mocks, there are no experimental questions. Now, it does work still, but not at the same extent as in the real test. So you have to believe in that strategy differently. So a lot of mocks work in a different way, but official mocks are the best and the most reliable ones. Obviously, you should not be coming across known questions and everything. So it gives you a very good estimate of your scores. Then there's another reason why a lot of people get to see a fluctuation in their score, especially when it comes to verbal. So let me just delve deeper into this, because this is a very important area. A lot of people get stuck in the last two choices in verbal, right? They are able to eliminate three choices confidently, but last two choices they're not sure of. Now, you might say, Piyush, if that is a problem, it should happen in a mock as well. Why is it like dropping my score in the real test? Two reasons. Number one, if you're 50-50 sure of your answer, then probability is at play, right? Luck cannot be on your side, may not be on your side on the date of the test, or maybe on your side. Both, it can go to both ways. So you don't know whether your score will be same. Second reason, in the real test, you will have more pressure. So your chances of overthinking is higher. Your chances of making an error is much higher. So probabilistically, if you are at a 50-50 level in verbal, you might as well have a low score in verbal on the real test compared to your mocks. And that's very common to see. Now, what a lot of people don't understand in this 50-50 verbal problem or last two choices problem in verbal is, they look at the mock result. They see that, okay, they got 5 questions wrong, out of which 4 were because of last two choices. But what they don't look at is that, okay, these are the ones that you got wrong. But it is possible that you might have gotten 4 questions correct also, where you were confused in the last two choices. So you're giving yourself credit for the ones that you have gotten correct, even though you are confused, but you're taking away credit because for the other ones which you got wrong. You need to look at all the 8 questions. That this 8 is your, let's say, like zone of error. You can go wrong anyway, like anywhere between 0 to 8, you can get right. So you cannot, Arthur has a good question. Arthur says, how to avoid the 50-50 anxiety on test day? You cannot, Arthur. The only way to do that is improve your process before you go into the test. If you develop the right strategy of learning or solving verbal questions before you get into the test, so that you're 100% confident about the answer, only then that anxiety will not kick in. Because if it is not happening in regular practice, it won't happen in the test. And I've gone through that same problem myself. I used to be like unsure of my answers. I used to get down to last two questions always in verbal. And from there, I've improved my approach, improved my strategies for verbal, changed my strategies actually, not just improve them. And now I'm become so confident that when I'm marking an answer, I know why that one is the correct answer and all the other 4 are wrong answers. Okay. So that is the level I've gotten to now because I changed my method. So if you are in that zone in verbal that you are not confirm of your last two choices, there's a high chance your verbal score might drop significantly. So you have to work on that beforehand. Another reason which is related to anxiety is low confidence levels. Now, Low confidence means you are not generally confident, and there are a lot of things which actually increase or decrease your confidence. So you have to work on this practically. Like especially when I work with my students, like I do private tutoring for GMAT as well, and we offer self-paced course as well. But when I work with my students, like I make sure that I'm working on their confidence levels also, because what happens is, and this is what you need to do to yourself, okay, make sure that you look at things positively. Now, even if you're weak at something, you should understand where you're weak and improve on that, obviously, but don't be overcritical of it, because when you talk down to yourself, sometimes you end up increasing your anxiety levels unnecessarily. So you need to talk positively, you need to look at things in a positive fashion and work towards it. And there is a lot of work which can be done on this part, which I ensure that I do with the students I work with, at least whatever is in my capacity. And I'm recommending the same to you guys. Don't talk down to yourself. If you made a mistake, objectively analyze what you made why you made the mistake, and work on it. Thinking that, okay, my mock score was bad, or I did not do well, why did I not do well, I have studied for so long, all these things, and decrease your confidence, and that hurts you. So make sure that you're not talking down to yourself. Please don't do that. Like, don't do other people's job for yourself, okay? So make sure you talk positive and stay positive. That is very, very, very important. Even if you're not capable of getting to a 675, at least don't think about it in the test, okay? Just be free, take one question at a time, just with that focused mindset that I'm gonna do this question, and let the result speak for itself. I don't care about the result. I don't want the result to be super high. And that is like reducing the pressure of let's say performance from yourself, from your mind, but at the same time believe in yourself that I can do well if I do one question at a time, and give your 100% to it. Basically, don't go into the test with a low confidence, or doubting your capabilities. Please don't do that to yourself. That's a very bad thing to do before the test, okay? So get your motivation level high, confidence high, whatever you want to do that. I remember whenever I've gone to take the GMAT, I always listen to music for at least 45 minutes to 1 hour right before it, to ensure that I'm at the highest level or peak of my performance capabilities. Because music is my elixir. I listen to music, the right kind of music, it charges me up. So what charges you up, what keeps you motivated? Do those things before the test, okay? And I hope these insights are helping, right? Obviously this is not a subject matter discussion today, so we are not going into like the subject matter things. I do a lot of subject matter sessions. Please feel free to go through my YouTube videos on that. But today's session is all about strategies, and these are small minute things which you might think are tiny, but it actually has a lot of impact on your real score, okay? Now, I told you, right, I'll talk about the pacing strategies. What is the main purpose of a mock test? Let's understand them. These are 4 pacing strategies that I'll talk about. Let's talk about first one at a time, one by one, okay? So if I look at the first one over here, handling back-to-back 705 level questions. Now, I do a lot of mock sessions with my students, right? Generally, when we do the tutoring classes, one session I generally keep for a mock, where I make a student take a mock right in front of me, and I see how they're behaving and how they're going about it. And I analyze the mock for them and help them understand what they should change about their strategies to maximize their performance on the test day. Now, when I do that, I've seen this very often in many of the mocks, especially in the quant section. GMAT is supposed to be an adaptive test, right? Perfect, but it's not perfectly adaptive, okay? At least in the mocks that I've seen, and even when I have taken the GMAT myself, I have not seen this happening. That what is supposed to happen is you start with medium questions, the difficulty level should go up, medium, slightly more medium, medium hard, then go to hard, then hard. So ideally, if you're doing well, you are supposed to get the hard questions towards the end, right? It's possible, like it's supposed to be at the end. In the beginning, you're supposed to start with simpler questions, and slightly more, like slightly harder, but still simpler compared to the last part. The question should be in the center, right? It should be medium, medium hard, not too hard, obviously. But what I've seen with GMAT is sometimes they try to push you in the corner. Let's say I've seen question number 3 to question number 6, sometimes question number 1 to 3 also for students, but that's very rare. But generally 3 to 6 or 6 to 10, everything is going well for a student. All of a sudden, they'll give you 4 back to back, bang on, very hard questions, 705 level questions, or even harder. Now, I've seen my students, some of them actually give into this pressure. What GMAT is really doing and trying to do there is that they are trying to test your patience as to, if you are given 4 back-to-back questions, can you give it your 100% still and not worry about time, because obviously in the hard questions you are supposed, you will end up spending a little more time, correct? So it's not like you might not be able to do them in 2 minutes. It's possible you might take 3 minutes on an average, 4 minutes on an average. But what you need to trust in that scenario is that if they are giving me 4 back-to-back hard questions to balance the difficulty level of the test, because the test has to be completed in a certain time, they would have to give me easy questions somewhere in the end or in the bit in the center. And that's always happens. They will give you 4 or 5 questions like this, which can be done in 20-30 seconds each. It will balance out the time automatically. I remember in my own test, again, I'm not revealing any question or anything here, but I made no mistakes till question number 19. I made a single error in question number 20. That was my bad. It was a geometry question. I used my geometry knowledge, but everything was given in the question. I should have stuck to that information. But anyway, first 19 questions, I did not make a single error. All of them were correct. But even then, in the last 4 or 5 questions, I had 3 easy questions, 3 very easy questions, which are 20-30 second questions. Now you don't expect that on the real test, right? Like if you're doing well, you should have high difficulty level questions in the end only, right? But that's how the test works. Now this could be experimental questions. This could be the how the test works. I don't know. They don't tell you which is an experimental question. But my point is that if they give you hard questions, they have to balance it out with easy questions. Now you have to be ready to handle those back-to-back 705 level questions. You should not give in to that pressure. Don't don't cut corners there. It's okay if you spend extra time there. Understand and expect some easy questions to come. The test has to become simpler at one point of time to balance it out. That is an important thing you need to believe in. You need to execute in the real test. That is super duper important. Can I talk more about the adaptive testing? Right now, no, Arthur, that's a different topic altogether, but definitely don't worry. I have done a webinar on that. I will share the link for it in some time. Don't worry about it. I'll try to get the link for it and share it with you. I've done a detailed webinar on that, so you can go through that video, okay? Or I can take up your question towards the end in the Q&A part. Okay, the second thing which I want you to understand is and learn through a mock is setback of getting the last question wrong. Now, this is where a lot of people also are not able to get back from. So, for example, they look at their mock test and they'll see, okay, I got question number 7 wrong. They see the question number 7 is wrong, but what they don't realize is that sometimes question number 7 is not wrong because of question number 7. It is wrong because of question number 6. So what happens is sometimes you get a question wrong or you spend extra time on it, and because of that you go to the next question and rush through the next question. You're trying to cover up. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself. If you have spent extra time or you have gotten wrong somewhere, you have already made an error. You don't want to make it worse, and you have to learn how to get away from that setback. And to get away from that setback, it is important to take breaks or strategic pauses. Now when I say strategic pauses, I don't mean you have to pause the mock or the test. Obviously you can't do that in the real test, and you should not take a pause as in pause the timer. Let the timer run, take a mental break, take a 20-30 second 40 second, whatever break is needed. Get away from that zone, get away from that negative zone, which might push you into making 2-3 unnecessary errors, or if you don't make errors, you might end up losing a lot of time because of being in that zone. So try to learn how to handle the setback of last questions wrong. Now this is a very important thing, guys. Please don't underestimate the value of these things. This is super important. If you are actually going to do mocks, this is how you should look at the mock. This is the strategy you need to follow in the mock. Similarly, manage the rush in the end. If you are, let's say, in a situation where you have 7 questions and 10 minutes remaining in quant, I've seen a lot of people try and get all 7 questions done in those 10 minutes. Now, obviously, you need to attempt every question. That is true. But when I say get those 7 questions done, they try to split the time across all 7 questions and try to attempt all 7 properly. That's wrong. You should not do that. Unless you are a superhero, you are able to do that naturally, in which case you will possibly not be in that position. But you should not try to do that. My thought process is very simple. If you have last 10 minutes in quant, you do 5 questions. That's it. Don't go for 7 questions, because I've seen students making an error where they try to go for all 7 and they only end up getting 2 or 3 correct. They lose the battle completely. But if you focus on 5 and give your time to 5, you will be able to get them right. Obviously, the remaining 2 you have to mark. You should not leave anything unattempted on GMAT. That's a known thing which I expect you to know. But attempt only 5 questions properly in that case. No matter where you are, if you have, even if you have, let's say, 10 questions and 10 minutes remaining, you will not be in that position. But if you are in that position, still in these 10 minutes, you should only attempt 5 questions properly. The rest 5, you should randomly mark and move ahead. Develop this strategy, develop this thinking, and it's not easy to do. Trust me, your brain will tell you, try and go for all. Don't go that, don't do that. Just trust yourself and do some questions properly. Don't overthink those questions. I'm just asking you to do them properly. And you know what the best part is? If you try to do these questions properly, you will automatically might be able to do more questions than you would have done. You target 5, you might end up doing 6. But if you target 6, you might not end up getting even 4 right. So target 5, what is realistic? So in quant and verbal, we recommend that in the last 10 minutes, divide it by 2. That is the number of questions. Divide the remaining time by 2. 10 minutes, 5 questions. That's it. In DI, last 12 minutes, possibly you can do 4 questions. Divide by 3, not by 2. That's the more realistic thing in DI. And that's what works. Like one of my students, I'm not going to name him because he has not told his organization yet, and we can't release his interview, but he got a DI score of 87, and DI 87 is a crazy score. It's a 99.5 percentile. It's a very hard score to achieve. And he was telling in his interview that, Piyush, one thing which really worked for me was that you told me that you have to focus on only this many questions on DI, and I was not rushing through my questions. I was just focusing on doing every question properly, and because of that, I was able to get to question number 19 also. Understood? So don't rush in the end of the test. That's a very bad thing. So try to learn that as well. Also, learn when to move on from a question. Some questions are time sinks, right? They eat up a lot of your time unnecessarily. You don't even get to know that they're eating up your time because you are so focused on basically completing the question, and you get emotional about some questions sometimes. Okay, because what happens is GMAT will just in 1 second, guys. So what happens is sometimes you are so stuck on a question. It's a quant question from a topic that you're aware of, but for whatever reason, you're not able to do it at that moment. Don't basically get stuck in that question. Try to move away from it as soon as possible after a certain point, obviously. Like you should not be worried about like living. I'm just getting another link for Arthur as well. Yeah, so what I was saying was that like if it is a question where you're stuck, let's say you have spent 2.5 minutes on the question and you're not having any clue as to what you will do next. If you have a clue and you know that you can solve the question in the next 30 seconds to a minute, please do it. There's no problem. And again, this is not going to be the same thing for everything, right? On TPA, you might need a slightly longer time period. But what I'm trying to say is learn when you need to move from a question, move on from a question. Be aware of that and don't end up overspending time on a particular question, because I've seen people end up spending 7-8 minutes also on one question alone, and because of which they are not able to do well on the test. Okay. So I'm just sharing the video for test taking strategy because I know some of you might also have the same doubt as Arthur had. You're not asked for it, just that. So this is the link. You guys can use. This is a video that I did on GMAT Club itself. You can go through that on test taking strategy. 90% of these things are still true, almost 90%. The only things which might change from time to time, and I've also told that in the video, is that I've shared there that DI section starts with data sufficiency in the beginning, and verbal starts with CR, and then RCs are clubbed in between. That is something which is seasonal, which GMAT changes from time to time. And again, I've covered that in the video as well. And the good thing is that that seasonality which I'm talking about, we are seeing that coming again right now. Many students, like most students rather, who are taking the DI section are reporting that their test is starting with data sufficiency in the beginning itself, just like what I've covered in that video. But yes, like go through that. It will give you a good idea about the test taking strategy, that adaptiveness of the algorithm and all of that. Okay, Arthur? I think that would be helpful for you. Now, how do you analyze mocks? Let's understand how to analyze mocks. So you have an idea as to what the mocks are meant for, what are the things that you need to do in a mock. But when you're done with a mock, What is very, very important is you need to spend proper time on mock analysis. And I recommend spending around 3 hours for a mock analysis properly. Okay. What you do in 3 hours is sit before looking at the solutions. A lot of people, what they do is they look at the questions that they have gotten wrong and then they just look at the solution and move forward. Don't make that mistake. You go back to the questions that you have gotten wrong. A. You also look at the questions where you have spent extra time. B. In both the questions, solve them once again, try to recollect what is the process that you followed, and then try to think about, and in many cases when you're trying to recollect what is the process you followed and you solve the question again, you yourself will get to know what is the main reason of the error that you made. Don't look at the error, look at why that error happened. So that is super important. I used to do that for every single mock I did. I remember when I was a student, I used to spend 2 to 3 hours on every mock, and that used to help me improve significantly from one mock to another. So that is a very important thing. Now you have to categorize your issues in two buckets: subject matter issues, skill based errors. And these are the four broad category of errors in which you should categorize the things. So if you are having concept related issues, let's say for example you get a question wrong, try to write in your notepad or Excel sheet, whatever error log you maintain, that whether it is a concept related issue or not. This is number one issue. So that is generally recurring in nature. You will see this happening in a certain topic multiple times over, maybe in different mocks. Second reason is could be hard questions. You got the question wrong because it was actually a hard question. It was a forced error. I call this a forced error because the GMAT has forced you to make this error because it's a hard question. Similarly, you might have gotten the question wrong because of skill based errors. What are skill based errors? Number one, rushed error, right? You might have gotten the question wrong because of silly mistakes, because did not read the question right. You read the question wrong itself, and this happens because of rushing. You are rushing to save time. And why do you rush to save time? Now, there could be multiple reasons for that. One reason could be that your timing efficiency is not yet there, in the sense that some questions take a lot of extra time for you. And I cover this in some of my sessions that if you are actually wanting to perfect the GMAT, there should be questions where you are able to do them under 1.5 minute, 1 minute, naturally, not by rushing, but naturally by learning better methods. So it's possible that since you don't know better methods to solve all question types or a decent number of question types, you're always behind time. And to save time, you're trying to rush. And what you don't realize is, and this is a very big mistake which a lot of people make, they don't realize this, that when they rush, they don't end up saving time. They end up consuming more time. And you have to do that analysis. You have to write down in your notepad that this is a rushed error, and you also need to write down how much time you wasted because of that, because sometimes you make a silly mistake in calculation, your answers don't match, you have to go back again, you have to make the changes to your calculation, you have to redo the question, you end up losing 2 minutes just because of that. You read the question wrong, your answer is not matching, you have to reread the question, you have to resolve the question, you end up losing 2 minutes because of that. But what you're not looking at is you just tell yourself this is a silly mistake, but you're not telling yourself is that if this is a silly mistake, how much time has it costed me? Now when you add up those times, all of that time, it adds up to a big number, and that is which will give you the confidence that you should not be rushing in the test. Okay, I'm working with a student from Canada right now. This guy took a mock test with me like 3-4 days back, and he rushed in the beginning of the test, like rushed, and also did not strategize, did not observe the question, and jumped into with the first thing that came to his mind, and he made a big blunder because of that. But when I was sitting with him and we did the mock analysis, we came up with something like this, a very telling data, that because of him rushing, he ended up, let's say, spending 5 minutes. This is just a sample data I'm showing you. He ended up spending 5 minutes extra. He wasted 5 minutes because of rushing. So he understood that had he not rushed, he would have had 5 minutes extra and he could have done really, really well in that section. And you won't believe, it was just last week that we did this mock. For the quant section, he got a 78 in quant because of rushing and all those mistakes. And he takes the mock just 3-4 days later, works on the strategies, and he gets to a 85 in DI. Understand that. Just to put things in perspective, this is the 98th percentile, guys. And this is around less than 80%, around 70th percentile or something. Okay. Now, obviously, DI and quant are not comparable, but I'm just talking about the same mock by the same student in a gap of 2-3 days, when he understood that how much of an impact can rushing have on timing. So he calmed himself down, he stayed focused, and he made sure that he is not rushing. And the impact was visible. Okay. Fingers crossed, he's taking the test tomorrow. Let's hope he gets the best score tomorrow itself, and possibly we might cover his success story soon. And he will be coming live and telling you the same thing. But my point is that if you really want to understand the impact of these things, also note down the time that you are wasting, potential time savings that can happen because of that. And lack of strategizing is another thing. A lot of times you see a question, you jump right into solving the question without focusing on why, how you should actually solve the question. You don't do that sometimes, and that leads to you taking extra time on questions. And this is something which I've covered in my score improvement strategy session. I'm giving the link for that. I showed this example of this particular question where instead of solving, you should observe the question first. And this is what the official question of GMAT is. And this is what the simplified version of that is. If you do the question like this, you might end up spending 4 to 5 minutes on the question. If you do the question like this, you will get the question done in 30 to 50 seconds. That's it. It's that easy a question. Okay, now again, my screen is, my face is hiding this, so I'm just gonna get it here all actually in full screen mode. So I've done this question in that session. I've covered this. You can go through that session, you'll understand the importance of strategizing over there. I'm not going to cover that again. But sometimes what happens is when you don't strategize enough, you end up losing time because of that as well, and you don't realize that you're losing time because of that. So try to add up those things as well, because if you add up the time that you're wasting because of not strategizing and rushing, this data will actually give you much more clarity as to how much you need to slow down. And obviously, when I do this with my students, they are able to get more clarity because I'm able to do that more, like because of my experience, I'm able to do that properly with them overall. But yes, this is important that you do this properly. Okay. Now let's take on a few case studies. So one example I'll show you guys. This is again mock analysis. So the student, for example, if you see, the scorecard looks all good, right? Like it's the quant section. He ended up scoring low on quant. I think 81, 82 was the score that he got. Obviously, the data seems pretty good. Like most of the things are green. But what is hidden over here is something you need to focus on, the question review thing. If you notice, he ended up spending 7 minutes 31 seconds on reviewing the questions. And if you see the second highlighted part over here, he changed the answer from question number 2 from incorrect to correct. So although it looks correct over here, but in reality, this question was actually incorrect. So he started with 2 incorrect questions. And if you make 2 mistakes, even if you make a single mistake in the beginning, that in the first question, that's a very big penalty, at least in the quant section. And in fact, all 3 sections, but more importantly in quant. And he got first two questions wrong. So the algorithm thought he cannot do medium questions well. So all the other questions which were given to him were easy questions. And he sailed through them, that's okay. But score was low eventually. His score was just 81, 82. And the reason was he rushed in the start. Why did he rush in the start? And see, the timing for the second question is just 2.5 minutes. And that includes the time for review. It is not the initial time. The initial time was somewhere over here possibly. He got that wrong. He rushed through it. He missed something simple. And then he was able to catch that later. If he's able to catch that later, he could have caught it earlier. So sometimes when you start the test, you're not very focused, or you're rushing too much, or you're too anxious. You need to calm yourself down. It's okay to even take a break at that moment itself. Talk to yourself, 20-30 seconds, calm yourself down, calm the nerves, and then start solving. Don't rush in the beginning. So look at these things also. If you're rushing in the beginning of the test, control that. That will help you. Similarly, rushing in the end. Now you look at this scorecard. Okay, this is DI scorecard. Now look at these 3 questions. In the end, he had how much time? 1.5 minutes here, 1.25 here, 1.5 here, around 2.75 here. So overall, he had 7 minutes. Right? I'm just adding it up once again. Yes, 7 minutes and 4 questions remaining. Now, in this 7 minutes, the student could have easily gotten 2 questions correct. Had he focused on just doing 2 questions properly. instead of rushing. But what he decides to do was, he decided to do as many as possible. He spent 1.5 minutes on question number 17, 1.25 minutes on question number 18. Whatever he did, I don't know. I'm not sure whether he was like focused or not focused, but definitely he did not give his 100%. And the result is he got 3 out of 4 wrong. And had he spent time on figuring out the questions properly, he might as well have gotten 2 or 3 correct. But whatever he would have done would have been better than this. And obviously, he could have done better in the start part also. But I'm talking about another angle right now. So in the end, I've seen a lot of people make this error. I've seen people who have gotten 6 out of last 7 wrong despite having 10 minutes time with them, just because they tried to do all 7 right. Don't make that mistake. Learn from others' mistakes and you will actually do better. So other lessons. So another thing which I see with a few students, like one of my students, one of my very favorite students, Ria. I remember like she improved her score from 615 to 715 in just 15 days. And that is a amazing score improvement. And one of the things which helped her a lot was that when I was doing a mock with her, what I saw was that she was spending time on rechecking every answer, almost every answer. And her rechecking time was around 9 minutes or 10 minutes is what I remember right now. Your rechecking time could be higher, could be lower. If you are rechecking answers, you need to stop rechecking the answers, and that's something which will have a very big impact on your score. Okay, if you want to hear Ria talking about the same thing, you can go and check out her interview. She talks about this angle as well in her interview. That makes a huge difference. Now, how would you spot this? In the test, you can't spot it sometimes, right? How much time you're spending. So what you can do is, if you want, you can record the mock, if what that you're doing with your camera on and the screen sharing on, and check out the recording later to see how much time you're spending on rechecking. Like when I do a mock with a student live, I keep note of that time also. And if I feel a student is rechecking a lot, and in what I have seen in my experience is that in most of the cases when you're rechecking the answers, right, in 9 out of 10 cases you're not changing the answer, you're keeping the answer as it is. And in one case that you're changing the answer, in more often people are changing the answer to incorrect because of rethinking, unnecessary thinking. Rechecking, if you're doing for like 10 seconds in a question, I understand. That's not rechecking. That's just going a little slow and considering your answer. And I'm not saying that you should do that always. But if you're actually solving the question again unnecessarily, because of which you are actually wasting a lot of time, that's bad. So you need to have data around it as well. Okay, do that. Other things, make sure if you really want to get the same result on the day of the test, take the GMAT at the right slot of the day. Now, right slot of the day is different for different people. For example, night people. Night people are not nocturnal. These are just people who function better at night. For example, I call myself as a night person. I am not a morning person. I actually do perform better at night or evenings. So I should not take the test in the early morning slots. In fact, in general, early morning slots should be avoided. When I say early morning, I mean the 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. slots, because generally what happens is you have to travel to the center, you have to do all of that. So many people get so anxious because of the test that they're not able to sleep properly the night before. And that leads to less sleep, means you're not being focused in the test, and it actually impacts your score. So avoid early morning slots in general, unless you are Akshay Kumar and you end up like Akshay Kumar is an Indian actor, by the way. He wakes up really early, like 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning, something like that. So if you're a very early morning person in general, then you can do it. Obviously, there's no problem with that. But if you're a night person, definitely avoid early morning slots. Try to take it at the right time of the day. And even if you have to delay your GMAT by a few days for that, do that. Trust me, it will help you out. The next thing is, don't take too many mocks in the days leading up to the test. That is another mistake a lot of people do. They take too many mocks, burn them out completely, burn their energies out completely before the test itself. Take one mock every 3-4 days. That is good enough. Okay. Improve your process to solve questions before getting to the mock stage or test stage. Trust me, you cannot improve your timing magically on the day of the test. There is no magic that exists in the world. Anyone who tells you they can make you do that, it won't happen. Trust me. Timing per question won't improve. Pacing can change. That's a different story. But they are both different things altogether. Fix the right section order for you. Experiment a little and see what works best, and then stick to it. That's super duper important, guys. And that is what will get you the target score. Okay, so I've covered this part in some of my sessions, other sessions also, that in GMAT, these are the skills that you need to have on top of quant, verbal, and DI. And this is something which I have covered in the score improvement session also. Please do watch the recording of it to get an idea. And important, to, like in the mocks that you do proper sectional score analysis as to see what your current score is, set the right sectional scores, and see what kind of improvement you need to make. Like people generally look at their overall score, but also try to see your sectional score. Are the sectional scores lining up? If the sectional scores are fluctuating a lot, your overall score is same, but sectionals are fluctuating a lot, your actual score can also fluctuate. So try to also kind of see some sense of, let's say, I'm not saying that it should be exactly the same. Obviously, it is not possible, but it should be some sense of consistency in the sectional scores also that you should see. Okay. Now, obviously, if you need any other personalized advice and you want to understand how you can work with GMATWhiz and improve your score, just like so many students of ours, feel free to get in touch with us overall on this link. I'm going to share that link for you, because we can look at what your current time available is, your target score is, what kind of resources you have utilized, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and help you design a personalized study plan where you work with us and we help you take you to the target score. So if you want to understand how you can work with us, how you can leverage the amazing resources that we have, feel free to reach out, click on this link and feel free to schedule a call on our calendar, and we'll be more than happy to discuss this with you. But definitely there's a lot of science behind what it takes to kind of get to the right target score. Okay, and we have helped a lot of students get there. Ria's journey is one of the very inspiring ones, improved from 515 all the way to 715, and the last improvement happened in 15 days. And some of the things which worked out for her for execution were learning right methods, learning when to use numbers, strategizing the method for verbal, increasing the self-belief, stopping rechecking, starting meditation 15 days before the GMAT, and taking pressure off the test day. That is something which is very, very important, guys. So it is very important to follow all these advices. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. I'll open the session for an open-ended Q&A. I'll more than happy to take up your questions, guys. I'll be here for 4-5 minutes, whatever it takes to answer your questions. But yes, if you want to reach out to me separately, the details are there on the screen. That's my WhatsApp number and my email ID right there. And if you want to schedule a call on my calendar to understand how we can help you improve your score, feel free to reach out using this link, and I'll be super happy to answer. Okay, I'm having a few busy days because this is just round one, very close. So, but yes, like there are a few slots on my calendar that you can find through this link. Okay. Thank you so much, Arthur. I'm happy to know that you found the session insightful. I tried my best to share whatever learnings I had from my own understanding of how to analyze mocks and how I help my students analyze mocks and how it works out for them. But yes, that's it. So I'll take up your question. Can you talk more about the adaptive testing? I scored 3 errors in quant, but percentile is lower than expected. Reason, I guess I managed to correct 3 to 3 response. Yes, Arthur. So correcting the response for 3 questions does not get you the same score. So if you got 3 mistakes and the score was less, possibly you made mistakes in the beginning. But again, I don't know whether it was before the change or after the change that it was 3 errors. Thank you, Juan. I'm happy to know that the insights were helpful. So thank you so much for that comment. And today's session was very silent. I think only 2-3 of you were interacting, but still, thank you so much for interacting with me. And I hope all others were engaged in trying to understand every single point and sink in the thoughts that I talked about. So yes, I hope all of you found it helpful. But any other questions, guys, you have, I'm happy to take it up. I think it was a similar case with the study you shared. We'll try to nail the first few questions. Definitely. But please make sure, I don't mean to say that you will overspend time in the first 3 questions. Don't do that. Overthinking is worse than rushing. You need to strike the right balance. Give the initial questions the due time that it deserves. Don't overspend time. Okay? That's important. Okay, guys, so I don't see any other questions. I hope all of you found the session helpful, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. More than happy to take your queries up, and maybe who knows, you might as well be on this live chat sometime covering your own GMAT journey. So all the best, and stay positive. That's the main thing, and make sure you use the mocks for the right reason, which is to ensure that your pacing strategy is correct. And if you do that, if you follow the advices that I've shared today, you will end up getting a very high score. And obviously you have to be prepared to be there with the right subject matter and everything. So if you want to check out that video, I'm going to share the link for the score improvement strategy session again. Check that out. It will help you get a good insight into how you can improve your subject matter as well. Okay, so I'm just sharing the link in the chat here. It's there. You guys can click on it, go to that session and check it out. Okay, all the best. Good night to if you are in India or Asia right now, and good morning, good evening is based on wherever you are. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Johan, for the last comment. I'm happy to know that it will change your way of looking at marks. Thank you so much. All the best from my side.